Om Gurubhyastadgurubhyascha namo vakamadhimahi vrinimahe cha tatradyau dampati jagatampati Srimate Ramanujaya Namaha Venkatanathadhyaya Namaha Lakshmi Kumara Tata Deshikaya Namaha Krishna Tata Deshikaya cha Namaha. So, this video is about Brahma being a upAdhana kAraNa. So first of all, let me explain what an upAdhana kAraNa is. So you see, this is a bottle. It's a bottle made of copper. Now copper, you take a blob of copper, you melt it, you mold it in this manner, and you get this bottle, right? So this is a copper bottle, and upAdhana kAraNa means the material cause. The material which has changed into this shape. That material, that blob of copper, is called the upAdhana kAraNa. This is to be contrasted with something called a nimitta kAraNa. A nimitta kAraNa is the instrumental cause, which is so you take this blob of copper. Does it automatically become this bottle? No, you need some effort. You need to melt the copper, you need to pour it into a mold, and then you need to extract it, you need to cool it down, and then the bottle is ready. So that is the nimitta kAraNa. If you take the popular example of a pot, you have something called you take clay and you make a pot. Who makes the pot? The potter, kumbhakara, makes the ghata, a pot. Right? Here the kumbhakara, the potter, is the nimitta kAraNa, the instrumental cause, whereas the blob of clay is the upAdhana kAraNa. Right? So now the interesting thing is, this world, who is the upAdhana kAraNa for it? Is it Brahman, as the shrutis say, or are the shrutis being somewhat euphemistic or metaphorical or something? Are those Vedic statements to be interpreted away? Or should we accept that Brahman is itself transformed into this jagat? Now, different schools of thought have different answers to this question. Now, the Shankaran or Advaitin, so-called Advaitin view is that there is no such thing as the formation of the jagat. It is all mithya, an illusion. So that is their philosophy, as ridiculous as it sounds. But you see that there are even worse philosophies. All right. What are these? Some of these worse philosophies. One is, yes, Brahman, the Brahma, who is praised in the Upanishads, in the Vedas, that Brahma is actually transformed into these various entities. I am Brahman. Brahman has limited himself and made himself into this form, and he made himself into this form, this insentient thing, and so on. So this philosophy is called bhedAbheda, or it was svAbhAvika-Dvaita. Someone called yAdava-prakAsha held such a philosophy. Not only him, even abhinava-Gupta, the Trika philosophy, maintains that Brahma, the Parabrahma, with his own swatantriya shakti, his own freedom, limits himself to being this poor fellow who suffers in this world, who can be beaten around, who can be abused by idiotic Shankaras for whatever joy they get. So that Brahman can be put into this state because of his own swatantriya, which he limits, which he imposes on himself, and by his own swatantriya he gets liberated at some point in time. So this is called bhedAbheda. All right. So there is another paksha from bhAskara, which is the aupAdika-dvaita. All right. So based on upAdhis, Brahma is limited, is considered in a limited sense to be this person, this entity, and so on. All right. So that was the paksha of bhAskara. So the akasha in this is something called bottle akasha or ghatakasha, whereas the rest is madhakasha or something. So it's all actually Brahman. Only because of upAdhis it appears different. So this is another paksha. So we have listed probably all the major pakshas, all the major points of view as to what, as to whether. Wait. I forgot one thing. The madhvas and the nayyAyikas, they think that Brahman is not the upAdhana kAraNa of this world. There is a separate thing called prakRti, separate from Brahman, and that transforms into this world. So this is the view of the madhvas. Now let us examine each of these views. I forgot. There is the Siddhanta, which I happily represent, the vishiShTAdvaita philosophy. It says that yes, Brahma is the upAdhana kAraNa of this world. However, it is the body of Brahma, not his swarupa. Right? Now, you see, Brahma is even if he takes the shape of this, the body of Brahma, if it takes the shape of this, the nature of Brahma, the svAbhava of Brahma does not change. What I see here is still copper. Its svAbhava has not changed. It is still a conductor of electricity. It is still a good conductor of heat, a good thermal conductor. It is still antimicrobial in nature, right? So all those Swarupa gunas, they have not changed, right? And it remains an insentient thing. I can hit it. It has not changed, right? So this is the view of vishiShTAdvaita or savisheShAdvaita. Now let us see. Let me first dismiss all these other views, all right, accepting the final view, which is of the madhvas and the nayyAyikas. So first, the shAnkara view, that there is no jagat, it is all an illusion, that the srishti of the jagat, it's laya, it's all an illusion, and so on. It is just nonsensical. It is real because we experience reality. It is our senses are not fooling us, and no shruti says that the world is false, an illusion, or anything like that. So we can dismiss it out of hand. There are many videos about it, or we can make other videos. Let's forget it. It is too ridiculous. Then there is the bhAskara aupAdika-dvaita position. So all this has been dismissed, dissected, thrown away in rAmAnuja's Vedartha Sangraha. So there it relates to ridiculous conceptions like kshane bandha moksho, right? Now an upadhi comes, it goes away. Upadhi comes and goes away. So you get bandha moksho in every kshana, in fact. Upadhau gacchati sanyukta viyukta brahma pradesha bhedācha brahman yevopādhi samsargah kshane bandha moksho syatam iti santah parihasanti. So what does this passage say? It says that, so if I move, so all this is Brahman. The Brahman in this space here, the Brahman in this hand, the Brahman in this bottle, it's all Brahman. Only the upAdhis, such as the existence of a bottle here, distinguishes this part of Brahman from this part of Brahman, right? So if I move the bottle here, from here to here, the space here is now free of this bottle upadhi, right? So this space here has now suddenly become different because I moved this bottle from here to here, right? So if I move from here to, let's say, here, this space where I was sitting, it has suddenly got moksha because it is not bound by a body, right? And if I am here, And if I move here, now this space which was mukta right now, until I moved here, is suddenly baddha. It is bound to samsara because the body has moved there. So it causes this ridiculous notion of spaces, parts of Brahman getting bandha and moksha in moment to moment as the bodies move. So this is ridiculous, and there are other contradictions which rAmAnuja has noted. So we can dismiss bhAskara's aupAdika-dvaita, right? That Brahman is the upAdhana kAraNa of prapancha, but it is only due to upAdhis that the jagat is as it is. All right, so that's bhAskara's position, and it is risible. Now consider this position of the Trikashaivas, the pratyabhijna darshana of abhinava-gupta, and even yAdava-prakAsha, the bhedAbheda position. So what does, to remind you what it says that devadattasyaikas, okay. So what it says is, to state the pratyabhijna position as an example, Brahman is happy with bliss without division, but by his own swatantriya, he limits himself into this entity, that entity, and so on, and he enjoys so-called he experiences the fruits of this limitation, and by his own swatantriya, when he likes, he grants himself moksha from this condition and becomes undivided, fully conscious, and so on again. So this position is called bhedAbheda, and it is ridiculed as well. So what the ridicule? So I will read it out. Yatha devadattस्य ekasmin haste chandanapankanulepa keyurakatakaanguliyalankaras tasyaiva anyasmin haste tasyaiva upAdhismin haste mudgarena abhighatah kAlaanala jwalanupraveshascha. So there is a flame here, and imagine I'm putting my hand there. Tadvadeveshvarasya syat iti brahmajnanapakshadapi papiyanayam bhedAbheda pakshah aparimita dukkasya paramarthikatvat samsarinam anantatvena dustaratvacha. Okay, so this is how this idea is ridiculed by Sri rAmAnuja, the bhashyakara of savisheShAdvaita. So it says that imagine a person, let's say his name is Devadatta. On his one hand, you apply sandalwood, you put all sorts of ornaments, maybe you massage it like this. He is experiencing pleasure here. But on the other hand, you burn it, you scratch it, you hit it with a hammer. So this hand is experiencing pain, and this hand is experiencing pleasure. Now my question to you is, am I experiencing pain or not? The answer is yes, I am. So rAmAnuja says, so this position is even worse than the idiotic Shankaran position of Brahma having ajnana or avidyA obscuring him, because it says that the suffering is real and is happening on Brahman himself. There is no illusion. Brahma is suffering. So that's the idea in bhedAbheda, in even in pratyabhijna under different guises. So it is even more horrible and ridiculous than the Shankaran position. So we leave it there. Now coming to the other position which I mentioned, the idea that Brahma is not the upAdhana kAraNa of jagat, which is held by madhvas. The motivation for this video is a write-up sent by a friend, anIk tivAri. He's somewhere in, he's a North Indian who is born in a Smartha family, who has totally read self-taught, roughly self-taught person who has immersed himself in savisheShAdvaita arguments, and he finds them logically correct. Now, he's a young person, anIk tivAri, his name is. He's going to take formal initiation into Sri Vaishnavism probably this year with the anugraha of Bhagwan and the Acharyas. He sent me this Sanskrit write-up. I read it and I felt so happy, and I thought I should make a video about it, right? So he says, madhva brahmano jagato bhinna nimittopadana karanatvam nangi kurvanti. So this is a criticism of the madhva idea, that the Dvaita, so-called Dvaita idea, philosophy of Madhvacharya, that it is impossible for Brahman to be the nimitta and upadana karana of the world. You see, the potter makes a pot. Now, the nimitta karana of the pot is the potter, whereas the upadana karana of the pot is clay. They are different. So the same applies to Brahman. Prakriti is different from Brahman. He makes the jagat, but he is not the Prakriti, and therefore he is not the upadana karana of jagat. Now this philosophy is of course superior to all the other alternatives we have seen, which are ridiculous. However, this philosophy has some drawbacks. What are those drawbacks? The main drawback is not anything, any assault on logic or anything. It is just the fact that it contradicts scripture, shruti, agamas, and so on. Now, what is the problem? You see, shruti says that everything comes from Brahma. Brahma is transformed into this world. And so does my friend anIk tivAri. He points out, see, you say that pAncharAtra Agama is a pramana for you, dear madhva friend. However, you say that what do you make of this clear statement? Tasyopadana bhavepi vikara viraho hiya Viryam nama gunasoyam achyutatva parahvayam. Right. So, if you believe in pAncharAtra Agamas, ahirbudhnya-saMhitA is a well accepted, well retained pAncharAtra Agama, and it is clearly saying that nirvikAratva, despite being the upadana karana of this world, is a guna of Brahman called virya. Now, you are directly contradicting scriptural statement. This is not correct. Now, the madhva, he can bring up an argument against this. He can say, यदि ब्रह्मोपादान कारणं स्यात् तर्हि विकारः प्रसज्येत अतः तानि वाक्यानि अन्यथा व्याख्यातव्यानि. So you may say that okay, you accept these shruti statements which say that Brahma is the upadana karana of this jagat, but what are you going to do with the same shrutis, other shruti statements which say that Brahma has no vikara? Are you going to put salt and misinterpret it in some other way? Well, we are taking this statement, the nirvikara shruti, and we are interpreting that upadana karana statements in another way. So we are no worse or better than you. That's what the madhvas may say. However, that is not okay. So let us see what anIk's response to that is. See, he says, sir, just because something is upadana karana of something else, it doesn't mean that the vikara has taken place in its essence, right? The essence remains same. So just because a blob of copper turned into this bottle, it doesn't change its conductivity, its thermal conductivity, its antimicrobial properties, its metallicity, its sonicity, and so on, right? The same applies to Brahman. Okay, now uh, uh, so not only that, what we say is that it is Brahma's Sharira which transforms itself into this Jagat, and not the Atma or the Swarupa of Brahman, which is nirvikAra, right? So, for example, an example given in the Shruti itself is that of a spider. You see, let us see, spider weaving web. Okay, so you see, this is the spider weaving a web, right? Now, you see, it's splitting all these fibers. Where does it come from? It's coming from the spider itself. And it is both the nimitta and the upAdhana kAraNa of the web, right? So, similarly, well, I will say that Brahma is the nimitta and the upAdhana kAraNa of the world without undergoing any changes in his essence. So here, the Atma of the spider remains the same, right? It is not undergoing any transformation. So the nirvikAra Shruti is quite accepted as it is, and the upAdhana Shruti is also accepted, because the upAdhana Shruti applies to the body of Brahman, whereas the nimitta Shruti applies to the Atma, which causes the body to act. So when the Shruti says this person is doing or when someone says this person is doing this, he's talking about both the body and the soul. So both of them are referred to by the same person, Vishwas. Okay, this person's hand is going up, right? And it has changed its shape. It's made a fist. So this change applies to the body and not to the Atma. And the nimitta and upAdhana karanas can be referred to by the same term, Vishwas in this case. Vishwasa has made a fist. Well, the body has changed. I have not changed. And I remain the upAdhana karana and the nimitta karana of both. Okay, so this is the easy solution he proposes. By this way, we show that unlike the madhvas, our dear Vaishnava friends, we are not twisting the Shruti in any way. We are not twisting the nirvikara Shruti. We are not twisting the upAdhanatva Shruti. And similarly, okay, so he may ask, what are other faults in the nimitta karanatva, nimitta matra karanatva, I should say. Okay, what are other faults? Because okay, so Shruti says everything dissolves into the cause, everything dissolves into the source, right? When this melts, it becomes a blob of copper, right? Similarly, when the world dissolves, it dissolves into Brahman. That's what the Shruti says, right? So the Dvaitins would have trouble with such statements. They will have to use Lakshana for such statements. And another is kAraNa dhyana vidhi. Karanam tu dhyayet. The Shruti suggests us to meditate on the upAdhana kAraNa as a way of liberation, and to meditate on the kAraNa of this world, the upAdhana kAraNa of this world, in order to attain it. Okay, so if prakRti, who is not Brahman, were the upAdhana kAraNa of this jagat, well, I would attain prakRti. and not Brahman, which is not my intention. So the upAdhana kAraNa, which is to be meditated upon by the sadhaka according to shruti, has to be Brahman only. So these are all the faults in the madhva position. My main intention was to show how beautifully upAdhana kAraNatva is handled in savisheShAdvaita, in contrast to other systems, ranging from the very ridiculous, such as the bhedAbheda system, to the ridiculous, which is the shAnkara system, and the bhAskara aupAdika-dvaita system, and to the more logical but contradictory towards pramanas, the shabda pramana, which is held by traditions such as the madhva tradition. So this was, and of course, to appreciate my dear friend anIk tivAri, who is soon going to be a Sri Vaishnava after his initiation. May the gods and the great sages bless him. Namo Namaha.